Art comes in many shapes and forms, from the modernism displayed in Mondrian pieces all the way to the abstract, anatomical creations of Basquiat. There is always some boundary being pushed in the art scene. One such theme is the hunt for creating the most disturbing art pieces. So, today, I compiled a list of the most disturbing art pieces ever created. Before we hop in the video though, I want to just say that I hope you're taking care of yourself and I hope you're doing well. Especially with the change in weather this time of year that allows us to feel a little bit more down than usual, so I do hope you're taking care of yourself. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough of my blabbering. Let's hop in. Caden Currie. Our first two pieces come from artist Caden Currie. His pieces generally focus on the body, whether that be illness, injury, or the effects that happen to the human body. His art is cited as being very socially and politically charged. According to nationalgalleries.org, they had this to say. He began to depict decaying and damaged bodies as a response to what he felt was the sickness of contemporary society. Well, in simple terms, it basically means that it's his way to express his disgust for the disturbing, dark, and messed up things that happen in our society. One of these things being war. The first piece that we're going to be looking into is one called Hiroshima Smile. It's very simple, but very effective in its delivery. The painting shows a shirtless individual with a disfigured face staring back at the viewer. The eyes on the painting don't sit at the same level, one being around an inch lower than the other. The nose-to-mouth region appears to be gaping, wide open, with only the bottom teeth being revealed and some semblance of a bottom lip. The detail in the painting really shows, especially when you can see the slight spiral near the side of the mouth and how the gaping region appears to be slightly sunken in. I kid you not when I say that I stared at this piece for around 10 minutes just drinking in all of the intricacies within it. Anywho though, this piece is obviously supposed to be a statement about war. You feel very crushed by what you look at. I believe that the darker background around the figure really just brings everything together. The fact that it's just the victim of this tragedy is very powerful. There's nothing else in the background, it's just what happened to them. And it's very sad, especially considering the fact that our fellow humans did that to other humans. The next piece of his is essentially an extension of the previous one, and this one is titled Rictus. Rictus shows a very similar looking figure like the one in our previous painting. The only difference is that a uniformed general stands in front of the image. The Guardian says it best, in my opinion. Looking at it, however, is a uniformed general who stands with his back to us, gazing close up at what a nuclear war does to the survivors. It is a blast of anger at the masters of war who play with our world as if it were their little toy. This is what Currie would like to do. Make a warmonger stand up close to see the real face of his handiwork. This piece, I believe, encapsulates Ken's artwork beautifully. It's supposed to make you feel sick. It's supposed to make you feel a little revolted. It almost, in a way, makes you not want to enjoy it, and I believe there's a lot of beauty in that. The disgusting nature of humanity is being shown right in front of this general, and he has to see it. He has to bear witness to what he's essentially done, assuming he's a contributing factor in the war. The thing that I appreciate very deeply about this piece is the fact that it addresses a thing not many humans can do, and that's look at the effects of their actions, having to own up and almost look at the consequences of what they had done. And that is very powerful. Our next piece comes from famed horror and surrealist artist Zdzislaw Beksiński. And I'm going to be honest, I looked up many different ways to pronounce this name and every single one came back different. I never really found a consistent way to Americanize it, so I apologize if I'm totally butchering this. But if you're unfamiliar with his art, strap in. Zdzislaw's artwork is primarily known for his disturbing images that detail melancholic, surrealistic environments. These desolate landscapes are often filled with contorted figures, decayed buildings, and an overall sense of dread in the person that bears witness to this art. Fascinatingly enough, Zdzislaw has maintained pretty heavily that there is no symbolism within his art. Nothing. There's nothing deeper, which is interesting. Where viewers saw darkness, Foreboding and outright apocalyptic horror, he claimed to be only striving to bring his imaginings to life. "I wish to paint in such a manner as if I were photographing dreams," he is most famously quoted as saying. But if that were the case, would those not be nightmares? Initially starting off as a photographer and sculptor, he grew frustrated with the limitations that came from that medium. He then decided to pursue painting, which essentially became his standard medium. Interestingly, it's been cited that he enjoyed painting with classical music in the background. Now, you would think that these paintings would have these like deep, epic, dark names attached to them. From what I've seen, all of his paintings are left untitled. My personal little theory as to why he might not have names on his paintings is due to the fact that he doesn't want any symbolism to be interpreted within his pieces. Maybe that's why he left it untitled, I'm unsure, but that's my little theory. The piece that I chose is obviously untitled, but I believe that it does what he does best, and that is showing despair and withered figures. The piece shows two humanoid figures embracing each other. Their bodies are very skinny and have an assortment of bones protruding from a very thin layer of skin. The most notable part is the figure's spine. You can practically make out every notch. It seems almost like at any moment the bone could just cut through the skin and become exposed. Another notable part, in my eyes, is the vascularity on one of the figure's arms and legs. The detail on it makes it seem like you could reach your hand out and touch them. It adds a layer of realism that personally makes me feel a little ill. I have many ways to look at this piece, but the sheer desperation in the hug seems like it would be their last. You can even see the creases in the skin from how tightly they're holding onto each other. While Zdzislaw claims that there is no symbolism within his pieces, nothing deeper, nothing further, I'd like to weigh in with my interpretation. While some might say that this is just showing the despair of two figures, I believe that this is a little bit more than that. I believe that this shows the intimacy and love that comes from human nature. It shows that even through the darkest moments, their very skinny bodies, the bones practically protruding from the very thin layers of skin, that there's still love to be given. I believe that this piece is absolutely beautiful. Now, some might just look at it from the lens of just, oh, it's just dark, it's despair, there's nothing deeper than that. But maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm finding beauty where there isn't any. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Marina Abramovic. Our next and final piece comes from Marina Abramovic. Marina is primarily known for doing what is called body and endurance art. If you're unfamiliar with endurance art, I want you to basically think of it as pushing the human body to its limits. So that's like lots of pain, or lack of sleep, or just whatever the case may be. It's essentially just pushing the body to its limits. I know I just said that I'd be discussing a single art piece, but I want to give some context to what she does, so that way you understand what type of endurance art Marina is getting herself into. One performance that she did was called Rhythm 10. She laid out 20 knives in front of her and 2 tape recorders. She would then proceed to play the Russian knife game, which is rhythmically hitting the spaces between your fingers with a knife. Rusty Cage did a popular video on this in the early 2010s. Once she eventually made contact with her hand, she would move to the next knife and then to the next one until she reached the 20th knife. She would then rewind the tape recorder, play it again, and then try to mimic the sounds and hits on her hand, essentially linking the past and the present. Now, I imagine you're probably thinking to yourself, who in their right mind would do this? How do you even get in the mindset to do something like that? Well, lucky for you, Marina actually explains in pretty good detail how she gets in this mindset. The idea of death terrifies me. When there is turbulence on an airplane, I shake with fear. I start composing my last will and testament, but when it comes to my work, I cast caution to the winds. Once you step into the performance space, you are acting from a higher self, and it's not you anymore. It's not the you that you know. It's something else. The main performance that I want to bring attention to is one called Rhythm 0. Rhythm 0 was a 6-hour performance that invited the audience to do anything they wanted to Marina. She just stood still and let the audience do whatever they wished. There was a table that was a few feet away from her that contained 72 items. A few notable items on the table were a rose, scalpel, nails, metal bar, and a gun and bullet. Her instructions were as follows. There are 72 objects on the table that one can use on me as desired. Performance. I am the object. During this period, I take full responsibility. Duration, 6 hours, 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. The piece opened up in a very tame way. A lot of people weren't really interacting with her that much, but the people that did just lifted her arms or spun her around. Once it became very clear, though, that the audience's actions had essentially no consequences, that's when the brutality of the piece really began to show. Soon, Maria would be stripped of her clothing, and this eventually led to certain audience members going up and groping her. One audience member even made a little gash in her neck and sucked the blood from her neck. What the fuck? All the while, she didn't do anything. For those 6 hours, she stood completely still. It all just started getting crazier from there. People began writing on her. People took Polaroids of her and made her hold those photos. Someone even grabbed the weapon off the table, loaded it, put it in her hand, put it at her temple, and put her finger on the trigger. I guess it was at that point, though, that the audience was like, okay, that was too much. That's where they drew the line, and a fight broke out because of what happened. Marina was very dedicated to this piece. You can actually see photos of her crying as she's holding up like Polaroids of herself. This was obviously deeply affecting her, but she's so dedicated to her art that she stayed through for the entire thing. Once the piece concluded, she began to walk towards the audience and be herself. No one in that room stayed. Everyone immediately fled and left. They couldn't look at Marina. They couldn't confront her. They wanted to avoid the confrontation as much as possible, so they all left. This piece is very hard to stomach, but I find it very, very fascinating. It shows what humans can do when they're given power with no real consequences. I kind of view this piece like the Stanford prison experiment, how it's just like, hey, once you give humans power and no real consequences to their actions, they can kind of get pretty freaking brutal. The pieces that we looked at today were pretty sinister, and I believe this is the case due to most of them being almost consequences of our own actions. Whether that be war or showing the brutal nature of humans, it's all us. It's all our doing in a way. And I think that's what really brings together how dark and disturbing everything is. If you're interested in further night content, I highly encourage you to click somewhere around my face and watch another video of mine. I think you will absolutely enjoy it. Before we hop in the end segment though, I would like to thank my Tormented Knights and my Knighted patrons. For my Tormented Knights, I have Andrea, EB Agent J, James, Mowski, Nee, Shizen, Willow, Shyla, and for my Knighted patrons, I have Cherisy, Emma, Envy, Lila, Lucas, Naomi, Nixie, Raven, and Timo. Thank you guys so much. It honestly means so much to me. Thank you for supporting my content, the channel, and every other little thing that I do. It means so much. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the video, why not like and subscribe? It definitely helps me out. If you didn't though, why not dislike and let me know what I can improve on for next time. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all in the next one.